We're kicking off episode 52 of the podcast devoted to the classic and sometimes the not-so-classic genre cinema of yesteryear with the song Spice Island. It's from the album Americana by the Caw-Tikis. You can find out more about them at cawtikis.bandcamp.com. Caw-Tikis is spelled K-A-W, then Tikis. Americana is the name of the album. And like I said, you can find them over on Bandcamp. You can find them on their Facebook page as well, which is where I discovered that they've got a show coming up on December 6th, the dinner matinee at the Ship in Kansas City. Man, it looks like it's going to be a fun time. I can't be there, but if you can be there, let them know that you heard about them here on Bride of Monster Kid Radio. My name is Derek M. Cook. Welcome to the show. I'm the writer, host, and producer, and this week I'm joined by Monster Kid Radio irregular Matthew Rashleigh. Matt and I go back many, many years, and I'm excited to have him on the show this week because he recommended the movie that we're going to be talking about this week. This was his call, his decision. He wants to talk about Assignment Terror, a Paul Naschy film that I have seen before, but this is a first-time watch for him, and we're going to get into it and get his impressions of Paul Naschy, this film, and just kind of the overall subgenre or Venn diagram of where this particular type of horror film exists when it comes to monster movie cinema history. I'm really excited to get into it, and we're going to get to that here in a moment. We, of course, have Mark Matzke's Beta Capsule review where he's going through Ultraman Taro. We've got that coming up as well. And we even have Kenny's look at Famous Monsters of Filmland. And I think the timing is just right because we got a little bit of feedback about last week's Ray Harryhausen-focused episode.
Got any room in that voicemail box for me? Vincent here with the Camp Kaiju Monster Movie Podcast. I just finished listening to your episode about Ray Harryhausen. Huge props to you and Kenny for doing that beautiful work. I think Ray's story and hearing from Vanessa and everyone involved with his legacy and his foundation, it's so inspiring, man. So really, truly incredible episode. I know I'm going to listen to that one again and again and again. As his work, my favorites, The Beast, 20 Million Miles to Earth, Jason and the Argonauts, Sinbad. Like you say in the episode, ask me my favorite, it changes depending on the day. But it's all good. Love the podcast. Hope you're well. All the best. Till next time. Stay campy, my friend.
Y'all really should be checking out the Camp Kaiju podcast. Vincent, thanks for calling in, man. I gotta tell you, the Harryhausen episode, I can take a little bit of credit. I can take a little bit of credit on the post-production side of things. This was really driven by Kenny. Without Kenny, this wouldn't have happened. So I want to shift almost all of the praise, and not just from you, but from other people as well, that I've gotten about the Harryhausen episode last week. I want to shift almost all of that to Kenny. Yes, Beth and I were there. Yes, Beth and I enjoyed the Q&A and enjoyed watching Jason and the Argonauts. And yeah, like I said, I did some work on the back end with some post-production. But this was a Kenny show, man. It wouldn't have happened without Kenny. So much love and huge props to Kenny and what he brings to the table here at Bride of Monster Kid Radio. In fact, his look at Famous Monsters of Filmland has more to do with Ray Harryhausen. And while typically I go into the Beta Capsule review right after the introduction, why don't we switch it up a little bit, keep the Harryhausen train going with Kenny's look at Famous Monsters of Filmland and then the Beta Capsule review, and then Matt and I talking about Assignment Terror right after this.
This is just the beginning of the wildest, weirdest adventure you've ever seen.
I don't care for playing fair, I'm not the sharing kind.
Now anything goes. And everything grows. And And this is where the fun really began.
I wonder if this makes everything grow.
Hey, will you cut it out and leave it alone, huh?
Listen, Freddy boy, if I want to try some of this stuff, just don't you try and stop me, understand?
And try it they did.
Sheriff, we are going to take over this town. Now, first of all, there's going to be a 9 o'clock curfew for all adults.
It's wild. It's way out.
It's Village of the Giants.
Whether you like it or not, little man, we're just going to have to show you what's good for you, that's all.
Maybe we don't like your club either.
You're in it anyway.
See what happens when young rebels explode 30 feet tall.
Village of the Giants.
Walked through a graveyard late at night and seen a coffin open?
Have you ever thought what it would be like to see a person's head amputated?
Think of things so horrible that the human mind cannot imagine them.
See all this and more when you see on stage, in person,
That crazy mixed up Dr. Evil and his terrors of the unknown.
unlike anything that you ever seen or heard of in the past.
Hideous creatures from beyond the grave leave the stage and grab girls right out of their seats.
Girls, do not come alone. Bring your boyfriend to protect you when the lights go out.
You may find a live snake or rat under your seat.
A real dead body is given away to some lucky person at every performance.
Also, in person.
The Mummy and King Kong, famous Hollywood gorilla, real and alive.
Plus, on the screen, 2 horrific motion pictures.
Dr. Evil and his terrors of the unknown.
Plus 2 horrific pictures.
Hello there, Bride of Monster Kid Radioheads. This is Kenny with a look at Famous Monsters of Filmland. Last week we did a Harryhausen special, in which we mentioned FM 117, that had a famous scene from Seventh Voyage of Sinbad on its cover. Today we are going to take a look at the article found in that issue celebrating Ray's birthday. It was called 55 Candles for Ray. Under the title was this byline, Mr. Animation Takes the Cake by Mark McGee, founder of the original Ray Harryhausen fan club. Let's see what it had to say. Ray has reached the speed limit, 55. But what's this? He's not slowing down. If anything, he's speeding up, planning even more arresting special effects than ever before. I facetiously suggested to him, having topped the fabulous skeleton fight in the original Sinbad with the multi-skeleton slaughter in Jason, he might bring back to life those thousands of skeletons that Vlad the Impaler was responsible for and let them make mincemeat out of bad Vlad. He just smiled that enigmatic Harryhausen smile and said nothing. Now let me step aside and let Mark McGee say a lot of things about our hero, Harryhausen. One of the surest indications that someone in the movie industry has arrived is when his name is made special note of in a TV Guide movie synopsis. Lately, whenever a local channel is running Mysterious Island, Jason and the Argonauts, or First Men in the Moon, in parentheses, after the plot synopsis, it adds visual effects by Ray Harryhausen. To the legions of sci-fi and fantasy movie fans, not to mention those who take special interest in effects-oriented films, the name Ray Harryhausen is as familiar as a bottle of Coca-Cola. Many of us grew up to the hum of his flying saucers and the roar of his Cyclops, and could hardly wait another year until his next movie was released. It would be safe to say, I think, that no other visual technician has had such an effect on his public. It hardly seems important that the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences has not seen fit to honor the man with an award. as the reasons for such an obvious oversight haven't so much to do with Ray's merits as with studio politics. Ray's award is the knowledge that practically every young fan who has ever wanted to be an animator himself has, at one time or another, built his own version of the Cyclops or Emir, or a reasonable facsimile. If Harryhausen isn't the best animator in the business, he certainly had the most influence. Fan clubs have been devoted to him, articles have been written about him in Argosy, Life, Popular Mechanics, Photon, Cinefantastique, Famous Monsters of Filmland, and he even has an entire magazine devoted to him, FXRH. And with the recent success of his latest film, The Golden Voyage of Sinbad, it appears that Harryhausen will continue to reign as the high priest of cinema wizardry. According to an article that appeared in a 1959 issue of Argosy magazine, Ray shot his first monster footage while he was in high school. He studied cinematography at the University of Southern California, sculpture and painting at Hollywood Art Center, and the Art Students League in New York. He was given his first job animating the now famous Puppetoon series for George Pal. Interrupted in his work for a stint in the Signal Corps, Ray returned to produce a series of Puppetoons on his own, based on fairy tales such as King Midas and Little Red Riding Hood. The next step in Ray's career was his union with Willis O'Brien, the man largely responsible for the trick work in The Lost World and the legendary King Kong, a film which had been Harryhausen's original inspiration and which he has seen well over 100 times. O'Brien liked Ray's enthusiasm and, in Ray's own words, Willis O'Brien encouraged me enormously. Ray was given the job of chief technician on the John Ford Marion C. Cooper production of Mighty Joe Young. While there were several animators on the film, it was Ray Harryhausen who did the majority of the work. The film won an overdue Oscar for Obie and gained an important screen credit for Harryhausen. After a few years, Ray became impatient waiting for Obie to get another project rolling. So, on his own, Ray went out and landed his first solo assignment. The film was a Warner Brothers picture, The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. It was a low-budget picture, even for its time, and is important because it was here that Ray's innovative techniques made it possible for him to do the picture for a small amount of money, and made animation accessible to the low-budget producer. One of the major reasons that King Kong is such a marvelous-looking film is due to the technique employed by O'Brien to create the visuals on Skull Island. He designed his setups with trees and other scenic effects painted on a series of large sheets of glass, with miniature trees and animated models between them. This gives the artist complete control over the environment, and while the result may not be realistic, it is often more exciting because it is larger than life. Naturally, this technique works best in a fantasy-oriented film like Kong or Thief of Baghdad, but seems out of place in a more realistic or contemporary story. And the techniques employed in Kong are quite time-consuming, therefore costly to the point of pricing a film out of the market. Ray Harryhausen understood this and developed his techniques to not only fit the realism desired by the producers, but also design the shots so they could be completed in a relatively brief amount of time. Full miniature sets, for the most part, were out. Ray made extensive use of process or rear screen projection for the backgrounds behind his puppets, and a split screen was used to produce a real foreground in front of the model, thus eliminating costly matte paintings and full tabletop sets, which never carried proper depth of field anyway. Ray is also careful to calculate exactly how much footage will be needed so that he won't overshoot his animation, which avoids months of extra work and money. The next and most important step in Harryhausen's career was his union with producer Charles H. Schneer. It wouldn't be too presumptuous to state that without Schneer, Ray Harryhausen may not have enjoyed such longevity in his career. The first Harryhausen-Schneer project was It Came From Beneath the Sea. It was almost a remake of The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, only instead of a dinosaur attacking New York, it was an octopus assaulting San Francisco. Ray's next picture was a semi-documentary for Warner Brothers titled The Animal World. Aside from Ray's contribution to the film, which was the major selling point, it was a dull project and today is all but forgotten. This was Ray's first feature in color, but it presented no additional technical problems because the technique employed was simple tabletop animation. Although screenings of The Animal World today are quite rare, much of Ray's dinosaur footage can be seen, in another unremarkable film called Trog. Ray's next film was once again for Charles H. Schneer and Columbia, Earth vs. the Flying Saucers, and once again famous landmarks for the targets of destruction, this time in Washington, D.C. The next year, 1957, introduced the now famous Emir, a creature from Venus that came 20 million miles to Earth to trample through the streets of Rome until it was shot off the top of the Colosseum in typical King Kong fashion. Another interesting aspect of Sinbad was the featured monster, the Cyclops, which in many ways was similar to design to the Emir of 20 million miles to Earth. Both creatures had a quick step walk and held their arms stiffly at their sides, with the elbows back, as if ready to pounce. Many of Harryhausen's admirers loved this stylized pose, but few of them realized that it was invented out of necessity, rather than for dynamic or artistic reasons. If an animal walks with its arms up and stiff, then the arms don't have to swing from side to side, as arms normally do, which saves animation time. And as Ray is always quick to point out, time is money. After this, Mr. McGee briefly mentions the 7 films that came after Seventh Voyage at this time. His part concludes with a rather inappropriate criticism of Ray, calling his work stagnant and accusing him of crushing competition by not sharing his technical secrets. It just didn't seem right in an article dedicated to celebrating Ray's birthday. Foray actually agreed with my thoughts, and here closes the article explaining why he printed that part anyways, and his thoughts on the subject. What started out as praise for Ray ends on a note of criticism. It is not the type of downbeat ending that I would have preferred, nor expected when I requested one of Ray's earliest admirers to write a birthday feature about him. But I would not want to be accused of prejudiced censorship by editing out the critical conclusion. From my observation point in the field, I am not too sure there is room for more than one animator in town. Jim Danforth, in my estimation, the logical successor to Ray, if Ray someday decides to retire, has demonstrated his genius on various occasions. David Allen did an inspired recreation of Kong in color, atop the Empire State for the classic TV commercial of several seasons ago. And there are numerous other highly talented model makers and armature animators around town, throughout the USA and clear down under to Australia. To me, it seems to boil down to a matter of economics. One great animator can make a good life for himself, wife, and child. Or half a dozen can compete and everybody starves. If the public were crying for animated monsters like it's currently lapping up catastrophe pictures, if half a dozen stop-motion dinosaur and imaginary creature features a year were guaranteed big box offices, great! Then Harryhausen, Danforth, Allen, Hedgeberg, and the rest could have a ball, and all make a decent living. But enough editorializing, and back to that happy birthday to Ray Harryhausen. And Ray, may you live to animate King Kong lighting 100 candles on your cake in 2020. That is all for this week's look at Famous Monsters of Filmland. We will have more next time. For BMKR, this is Kenny saying adios.
Let's prepare for a landing, Brad.
Okay.
In a 40G gravity atmosphere, strange thing happens to man's body and mind. Barry Sullivan and Norma Bengell take you into the most fantastic science fiction adventure ever filmed.
Emergency! Emergency! Conditions desperate. Little chance of survival. Help us.
Mark, look!
What have you got?
The Galliot.
Bert, get me a fix on this right now. Wes, Brad, controls.
Planet of the vampires. Harboring a form of life worse than death. Planet of the bloodless. Creatures who take men's bodies, but attack like vampires.
I'll tell you this, if there are any intelligent creatures on this planet, they're our enemies.
In this outer space world, the living dead try to escape into life.
Alice.
No, just his body. And I'm just one of many beings on this planet. And we're fighting to survive. It's imperative that our race continue to exist. We arranged for several of you to kill each other so that we could take over your bodies. You are our last chance.
No, never. We'll all of us give up our lives to save our own race. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Richard Carlson. If I look somewhat older and more drawn than I have in my recent pictures, it's because of the harrowing experiences I've been having here in The Maze. The Maze is the first picture in 3 dimension that delves into the weird and terrifying world of the supernatural. If you're familiar with the exciting effects that can be achieved with 3D, you can imagine what happens when something from the great beyond reaches right out of the screen to clutch at you. Oh, and one more thing. After you've seen The Maze, please don't reveal to your friends the secret of its story or its startling climax. Because you see, we think The Maze will amaze you.
Fearful secret was hidden from the world for 200 years. Why was every door in Craven Castle locked at night?
I went to your room and I saw something. Something horrible. It was the most horrible thing I've ever seen.
It was your imagination.
It was something alive. I saw it move.
The terrifying story that startled the world comes to the screen in 3 dimensions.
Live from the Land of Light in Nebula M78, home of the mighty Ultra Heroes, it's Monster Kid Radio's Beta Capsule Review.
Ultraman Taro, Episode 12, Monsters Solo Journey. Original air date June 22, 1973. Kotaro and the Shiratori siblings are on a cruise ship to Kyushu. While on deck, they discover a castaway named Takashi who wants to visit his father who's working at Kyushu, digging hot springs. Meanwhile, at the work site, Takashi's father observes a cave-in and stops drilling, only to have his supervisor insist that the project continue. Finally, giant monster Vorkaler emerges from underground and eats Takashi's dad just before his son arrives. ZAT is called in to assist with the investigation, but Takashi, vowing to avenge his father, has already reactivated the drill, bringing Vorkaler to the surface. Kotaro pole vaults onto the monster, triggering a transformation into Taro, but a blast of toxic powder knocks the Ultra Brother flat on his back. Can he counter the monster's attack and save Takashi's father? The 12th episode of Ultraman Taro is yet another example of a series that knows what it wants to do and does it well, beginning with excellent special effects on par with anything coming out of Japan at the time. Numerous shots are nearly flawless composites, combining live action with matte paintings or suitmation, taken from creative angles that emphasize the on-screen action. But Taro is more than just technically impressive. At this point, just 12 episodes in, it's identified a major theme concerning children of its era, that being the absence of fathers due to the pressures of work. Here, Takashi takes it upon himself to go spend time with his dad, and his monumental efforts pay off, resulting in a surprisingly warm exchange with his father, who, thanks to his son and Taro, survived being pulled from a kaiju's stomach. But taken as a whole, remember the Shiratori kid's father is typically away at sea, Taro signals that it understands the economic and emotional issues facing families of the 70s, and suggests in its own way that friendship with others and a good imagination are keys to moving forward. For Bride of Monster Kid Radio's Beta Capsule Review, this is Mark Matzke reporting.
News of all. At nightfall, monstrous animals crawl out of crater of volcano. Great herds of cattle stampede before this living inferno. Vast area devastated by appalling new horror. A creature named the Black Scorpion by panic-stricken people of San Lorenzo. Entire population prays for deliverance.
For miles around, cowboys came upon one dead steer after another. One of them had heard the tale of the demon bull of the Maricopa. Having lost family or friends, something absolutely unknown. We could be in another world.
Nation's leaders confer as news received of possible threat to capital.
This is a city of 4 million people. If word of this leaks out, the panic of the population could be worse than the scorpions.
The Black Scorpion destroys communications. Hundreds annihilated. Produced on a scale never achieved before by any science fiction picture. Thousands in the cast.
that noise? I don't know.
Spiders. I told them to bring me one, and I'd believe it.
Well, I can't say I blame you, Sheriff. But Flynn's still missing.
Deep into caverns whose very air is putrefied by the stench of death. They search ceaselessly for a missing man, or possibly a giant spider no one really believes exists, except the high school teacher who knows his science and his students.
There'll be more giant spiders coming into the world. They may even be hatching from their eggs in some remote spot right now. Do you realize how easy it would be for them to overcome us humans?
A horrifying spectacle. Its existence shocks and fascinates the world of science. Its gigantic claws capable of crushing a man or tearing a woman apart as if she were a fly. But nothing sends the cats like the presence of out-of-this-world horror. A heart-stopping experience that defies man's imagination. The that shrinks every woman's skin with the tension of terrifying withdrawal, as if 1,000 spiders were taking possession of her body. You'll never believe it until you see it. You'll never forget the touch of the spider.
This is Count Dracula, and I'm here to offer you a friendly warning. Derek and his guests often get excited, and occasionally this results in revealing key plot points of the movies they're discussing. You know how the children of the night, monster kids, can get sometimes. So consider yourself warned. And don't come begging to me to kill them for their transgressions afterward. I have more pressing issues to take care of, like that pesky Van Helsing.
Recording in progress, says the Zoom machine, which means it's time to meet with... I didn't even give you a countdown, did I? I just dove right in. We got Matt Rashleigh here on the show to talk about a Paul Naschy film, and I'm excited to get his take, his thoughts, and just to catch up. How you doing, Matt?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here.
That's good. That's good, because we got some movies to talk about, movie stuff to talk about. Some Paul Naschy. Now, you had sent me a message, I think, yesterday, privately, that you've never watched Paul Naschy before.
No, this is my first Paul Naschy film. Like, I was aware of him, because back Full Moon June, you talked about one of his flicks. I'd listened to that, and seeing his image, I know I've seen him as a werewolf in stills and in clips, but I had never sat down to enjoy one of his pictures.
Okay. And we're going to get into the movie, but overall thoughts, just kind of getting a taste here. You can pursue more Paul Naschy?
Yes, sir.
Nice. Yeah, this one is a weird one to start with, though. I don't know if I would have picked this your very first. I was kind of surprised because you're the one actually that brought it up.
Yeah, it's funny. After Full Moon June and seeing his picture, I had kind of been looking at a few of his titles. And this one I saw was available on Tubi. I clicked on it, but it was a 4:3 box. It was not a great transfer. And so I never went into it. Then I saw on Facebook that Sinister Cinema had uploaded a high definition widescreen version of this movie. And I'm like, oh, this is the gods telling me it's time. It's time to give this a watch. So I decided to do that.
So Sinister Cinema, let's talk a little bit about them real quick before we get back into some Paul Naschy. Are you familiar with what they do or who they are?
Not much, no.
Okay. They are based out of Ashland, Oregon. So they are up in my former neck of the woods, kind of, sort of, still in your kind of, sort of neck of the woods. They are one of these labels that puts out a lot of product that is ostensibly in the public domain or orphaned products, movies on DVD, Blu-ray, and now on their YouTube channel as well. And they've also done some books in the past, and they've also distributed some things from like Severin, that sort of thing. You can find out more about them at sinistercinema.com. I've never reached out to them. I always wanted to when I lived up there in Oregon or even Vancouver, Washington, and just never got around to it. And I kind of wish I had connected with them, but they have a lot. Their library is deep. There's a lot of product there, and I'm kind of excited that they're putting some of their things out on YouTube now, which is how I watched the movie as well. Maybe I should reach out to them at this point. Maybe I should reach out and see about doing some more work with them. I know there's a documentary that just came out about the company called The Sinister Cinema Story. It played at the Portland Horror Film Festival, and I believe it's available on DVD now. I'd like to get my hands on it and check it out.
Yeah, this is the first of their presentations on YouTube that I had watched, and I appreciated the little introduction that their host did, and then they ran the original trailer, which was a really good setup for going into the movie. And again, the quality was better than I expected. So
that's been one complaint, if I'm being completely honest, about some of Sinister Cinema's releases, that they don't always have the best transfer available to them, or for whatever reason. And, you work with what you get. if you don't have the best original source material, you're not going to have the best DVD presentation, that sort of thing. I am glad that this looked as good as it did. It's, I believe, a scan from the 35 millimeters, how they promoted it. So it looks good. It's probably the best I've ever seen it. I have seen this movie before. I've seen it on disc, but this looked better to me.
We haven't mentioned the title of this motion picture yet.
I mentioned it at the beginning of the podcast.
It has many, many, many titles.
Oh, yes, it does.
I personally like the original title, The Man Who Came from Ummo. It's very ominous. Doesn't tell you anything.
It doesn't tell you anything at all.
Versus I don't know. It looks like this movie had at least 8, 10, a dozen titles, depending on which country it was released in. Just some of the ones I found quickly online. Dracula Hunts Frankenstein. The Monsters of Terror. Dracula and Wolfman versus Frankenstein. Operation Terror. That's getting closer to the way I know the title. Reincarnator. I like that.
That's my favorite. That's my favorite. I'm glad you brought it up.
And then another one was Frankenstein versus the Bloodsucker. That's okay. Bloodsucker's a different way to go. But Assignment Terror does seem to fit.
Assignment Terror is what we called it here in the U.S. when we played it on television. This got brought over here and played on late night TV with that title. I don't know a lot about this movie's provenance, like how it got to TV here versus theatrical release overseas, that sort of thing. There are other podcasters and other people in this community that know a lot more about Paul Naschy's history and Paul Naschy's film output. The Naschy cast in particular with Rod and Troy, they really know what they're talking about when it comes to Paul Naschy. I know Troy Howarth can speak at length about Paul Naschy. Steve Sullivan even has done some work in that field. But yeah, Assignment Terror is what it was called when it got released on television. And I like that title too, but Reincarnator, that's my favorite.
Yeah, it really fits.
It's a weird choice, like I said, to start with this film. It is reportedly the third time Naschy played the Wolfman character, the werewolf character, although the second film is reportedly lost. So for our purposes, it's the second film that we have access to, that he was Daninsky, the Wolfman, the werewolf character. The first film, Frankenstein's Bloody Terror, which is what we talked about during Full Moon June, which also has a dozen different titles, is where we first meet that particular werewolf character. And this kind of sort of is a sequel, but I mean, this film, it suffers, all of the werewolf films suffer from the same thing that, say, like Hammer's Dracula and Frankenstein films suffer from, in that, yes, it's the same characters. Is it really a continuation, or is it just another story? Is it a sequel or not? The canon, the continuity, doesn't really hold up once you really look at it. But kind of, sort of, it's a sequel to Frankenstein's Bloody Terror, maybe?
Yeah, I kind of got that from the little bit of research I did about the werewolf character kind of jumping around and the canon being sort of all over the place. That combined with his screen presence and the fact that he's sort of a tragic anti-hero in a way.
Yeah.
I kind of found the parallel between him and Wolverine in the X-Men movies, where, the timeline's kind of all over the place, but, sort of like Hugh Jackman, there's a lot of screen presence, and you kind of get drawn into the character, and you care about him, even though he's not the best guy.
I would not have drawn that connection. Not because I don't think it's accurate. It's a great connection. It's just not something I would have thought of. That's awesome.
That's why I'm here, friend.
Yeah. And now I can justify putting Wolverine in the show notes to maybe get some better, Google Analytics or something. I don't know.
Excellent. A lot of thoughts came to me as far as seeing this movie, and it probably applies to more Paul Naschy films, as a Venn diagram. Like, I kind of felt like if you had, Hammer films in a Venn diagram with Santo, maybe a little bit of Universal Monsters, like kind of overlapping. In that middle space is where these movies exist for me. Maybe a little Euro Spy, with the European setting and the really attractive ladies and the nice cars and the music. It kind of hit that sweet spot in the middle because all those things kind of came to my mind watching it.
Okay.
I also, I do like monster rallies where you get all of the classic iconic characters together in a film. Ever since, I was a kid watching Monster Squad, I love the concept. And you have that in this film. So that all worked for me really well.
Heck yeah. Give me a good monster rally. I'm all in, dude. That's awesome. Yeah. And as far as like the different monsters, he's mostly associated with Naschy, the Wolfman, the werewolf character, although he did play other types of monsters as well. I really, really like his singular mummy movie that he did, which I love so much. I can't remember the title, but to be fair, it probably also had a dozen different titles. The Mummy's Revenge. I really like The Mummy's Revenge a lot. And he plays the mummy in that one. But he's played in a number of other monster movies as well and played different types of monsters. But he's the werewolf. A lot of people call him the Spanish Lon Chaney. I don't know if it's really fair to say that because I feel like he has taken that werewolf performance and turned it into something so unique, so different than what Lon Chaney was doing. And he played him a lot more, too. Lon Chaney only played Larry Talbot a handful of times compared to what Naschy did in the werewolf makeup. So I don't know. I feel like he's his own thing, made it his own thing.
Yeah, I did after watching it, I did a little bit more research on him, and I found a really good documentary that came out in 2010 called Paul Naschy, The Man Who Saw Frankenstein Cry, with Mick Garris. And to learn that he had made over 100 movies, and not only had he played the werewolf, but he'd done a mummy, he'd done the Hunchback, he did a vampire, like he just did all kinds of things all over the place. He seemed really prolific.
And he was a much more integral part to some of these movies than, say, like Lon Chaney Jr. would have been, or any of our classic Universal performers, because he also wrote a lot of these things.
Right.
Which I think is pretty impressive, pretty phenomenal. Gets a little creepy as the career continues. Not to cast shade on somebody who can't defend himself, but when you find out that much older man Paul Naschy is writing love scenes for his character with much younger women, it feels a little skeevy to me. I'm just saying, just putting that out there.
Yeah, he definitely is in that exploitation genre, if you want to call it that. It seems as time goes on that it's really fascinating where his movies fit in European productions, in Spain specifically.
Yeah.
Because he was born during the Spanish Civil War. Most of his life was spent under Franco Spain's dictatorship with a lot of censorship and repression. And that was really fascinating to learn about. That, the government as well as the Catholic Church had a lot of say in media production and what was being released. But they had kind of a looser view on fantasy and horror film. So you're allowed to do more as far as nudity and violence. But one of the rules for them was all your villains, all your monsters couldn't be Spanish. Spaniards, their blood is too pure to be werewolves. So that's how Paul Naschy's character, Waldemar Daniński, was Polish. So it wasn't a Spaniard who became the werewolf. And so I just found that to be a really interesting little quirk that flavored these movies.
Yeah, historically, they do exist in this weird time, like you said, about what's going on in Spain and everything. And in terms of what the genre was doing, too, in the late 60s and through the 70s. We had the Universal heyday had kind of come to an end, which, it happened. We've got Hammer kind of doing their things over in England, and we've got Euro cinema doing its own thing. So many of these movies are co-productions with Spain. Like this film was shot in like 4 different countries. It's all over the place. Start and stop production repeatedly, that sort of thing. A lot of his movies, one that's really interesting to me is called The Beast and the Magic Sword, was shot in in Spain and Japan.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting to kind of see where he and his films kind of sit for me. And I like it a lot. I think the stepping stone that you see from what he was doing, what his films were doing in the 70s to the kind of horror movies we were starting to get into the 80s and even into the 90s is really important and interesting to look at.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot there for me to learn more about. I'm looking forward to it.
That documentary that you mentioned, I have not seen, even though I've got it on a hard drive that's not been hooked up since I moved from the Pacific Northwest. I really need to do that and make sure it's still there. I wanted to watch it before we got together. I just ran out of time. So I'm going to lean on you for that.
I highly recommend it to folks. They did a really good job of talking to filmmakers both in Europe as well as Paul Naschy's family, his sons, his wife. And then in the States, you know, they talked to Joe Dante and like I said, Mick Garris and a few others. And so you get a really broad perspective on his career and his influence globally. And they kind of go through his career. So you get to see how he started as well as, you know, the later years and the end of his career. It was a great way for me to learn about all the contributions he made and how special he was. And even in his later years where he didn't have a lot of money and was dealing with depression and health issues and was able to come to the States and see that he was loved and went to conventions. There's this great moment in the documentary where he set up to give autographs. And anybody who's been to a convention or a special showing, you know, they usually charge money to help pay for these people who've contributed to the things we love. But he insisted on doing it for free, even though he was struggling financially. And he stayed there for like 5 hours. He didn't say no to anybody. He was just happy to be what they wanted him to be. And that was just a really moving moment to see captured in this documentary. So I recommend it a lot. Coming back around to Assignment Terror.
Yeah.
There's a lot more to talk about there. I love the fact that you had aliens, you had a mad scientist. Like it was like you had all those things that I like in genre cinema, and the fact that you get Michael Rennie, aka Klaatu, as your alien, who's also a mad scientist, doing his own Plan 9.01 to take over the Earth by bringing Earth's monsters back to life to wipe out humanity and take over the Earth. Amazing. Like
it's crazy, man. And he wrote this. Naschy wrote this.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the fact that they got Michael Rennie, like I love everybody who plays a mad scientist. I think that it's one of those kind of roles that you get to sink your teeth into and you get to totally camp it up. But with having Klaatu in his senior years, with all of his gravitas and seriousness and his glare, like that raised the bar for me. Like I was in right away. And then we had the opening music, which nothing against
soundtrack. This is so cool.
Yeah, nothing against Raphael, Fito, and Franco Salina, the people who did the music for the film, but it kind of took me out of the genre a little bit.
You know, I agree. I think the opening theme music in particular is pretty jarring. It's not. But everything about this movie is kind of jarring. I mean, it's written kind of sort of as a sequel to the first, Frankenstein's Bloody Terror, which is kind of a pseudo-gothic story. And now we're introducing aliens and spaceship. There were supposedly flying saucers in the script that didn't get shot because of budget. I mean, we're going from gothic horror to crazy outer space stuff. And you mentioned Plan 9, another connection, similar.
Another circle of the Venn diagram.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The Venn diagram of this is all over the place, man. This is crazy. But that music, I think it's fun, but it's not easing us into a monster rally at all.
No, and like I think that both of us are pretty open-minded, and we like to celebrate, the oddities and things that are unique. I know that you and I will die on that hill of fighting for the soundtrack of 4D Man.
Yes.
Which I love. We'll die on that hill defending that score for that movie. But I feel like this one was a few notes too far.
I don't know. Yeah, I would like to know more about the decision-making process on that one.
I wish that, I know that supposedly this movie had a budget of $1 million, which was rapidly cut every day of filming. But I would have loved to have seen what Paul Naschy's idea for UFOs, and there was supposed to be a golem as well, a golem.
Right. We're teasing that too when they're going through the big book, the anthology of monsters or whatever it was, which I want a copy of on my shelf. They're flipping through the book and they mentioned the golem in there. I'm like, oh, we're going to see a golem now. Like I said, I'd seen this movie before, so I knew it wasn't happening, but come on, man, you tease us with that. Give me a golem. Who would have played him? What would he have looked like? Would it have looked better than the Frankenstein monster?
Yeah.
Which, the budget on this, you can tell it got cut pretty badly. Naschy is able to embody the Wolfman character. I'd say even without makeup, he's that good. So his makeup is fine. He does fine. But the Frankenstein monster it doesn't look great. It's one of the sillier monster portrayals, I feel like. Fortunately, the Mummy makes up for it. The Mummy's pretty cool. But the Frankenstein monster it doesn't do well for me. And I wish that when you looked this movie up on Google, that wasn't one of the first images you saw.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've read accounts where Naschy had said that the makeup artist for this film was the worst he'd worked with. That he was really disappointed. I totally agree with you on the Mummy. Teotet the Mummy, played by Jean Reyes, which I didn't see a lot of other credits for, was awesome.
Yeah.
His physicality, his build, the makeup. I wish that Jean Reyes's Teotet Mummy was in more films. I just wish they gave him more to work with because he looked amazing.
He looked really good. And as much as I said that I love Paul Naschy's Mummy movie, I like this Mummy better than Paul Naschy as a mummy. This Mummy is fantastic.
Again, I'm becoming a huge fan of Paul Naschy, even having just seen one movie and one documentary. His physique and his physicality to me does not say mummy.
No.
He's a strong man. He looks like a strong man. He's barrel chested. It's hard to picture him as a mummy. I'll give the movie a chance when I get to it. But yeah.
It's 1975 is when The Mummy's Revenge comes out. So Paul Naschy's eating a little better. It's like the difference between seeing, for me, Karloff as the monster and Son of Frankenstein versus the original Frankenstein. He's kind of filled out a little bit more, that sort of thing. And not that Naschy was ever a skinny, scrawny guy, but he's living better now. He's doing a little bit better. He's eating more. He's filling out a little bit more in The Mummy's Revenge. I still like The Mummy's Revenge quite a bit, and there are some things in that movie that are pretty intense, and it's gore, it's bloody. But no, this mummy in this movie, very cool. I really like that mummy, and I'm a sucker for a mummy. You wrap somebody up with bandages, and I'm in.
Nice. Yeah, I found the monsters pretty inconsistent. Like I said, we both loved the Mummy. The Count, played by Manuel de Blas, who did 7 other movies, including The Vampire Hunt Orgy in 1972.
Well.
Yeah, I don't know. I felt like the vampire in this was a letdown. He had great eyes and he had a couple moments, but no dialogue. Seemed pretty weak. I wish he had more as well. Then we get to the Frankenstein, or as they called him in this, Franxalon, they changed the name, I guess, because the makeup ended up looking so much like Universal's Karloff makeup that they tried to play with the name to not get sued, I guess.
One interesting on the poster anyway, the poster. Yeah.
Well, one thing that I did find interesting about his makeup, and I know that he definitely has a Universal vibe, I kind of felt like there was a little bit of Christopher Lee's Hammer Frankenstein. Like, if you look at the way that the scar is across the head and those eyebrows, those are Christopher Lee eyebrows. Because if you go back to Karloff's Frankenstein, he doesn't have any eyebrows. So I felt like there was, when I was going back to that Venn diagram, I think there's a little bit of Hammer influence there on that makeup.
Yeah, okay.
Not that it's good.
No, but I think you're right.
We haven't talked about any of the human actors in this. There's some good people in here.
I mean, it's really kind of a complex story for what they were trying to do here, I feel.
Yeah.
The screenplay definitely was written as if they had a lot more time and budget to work with, because there's a lot going on. We got the monsters coming back. We've got these aliens here that are resurrecting the monsters or reincarnating them. That's still the best title ever.
And then we have a detective story about trying to figure out what's going on and who's doing what.
Yeah, complete with, if you'd let me follow this up on my own, I'd like to take some time and investigate it. Yeah, sure. Just don't bring me back a vampire. What?
Yeah.
Cool.
No,
all right.
It definitely gives you a sense that Naschy was told that this would be a big budget affair, and hit for the fences, go for home runs, throw everything you want at it, and then they had to scale it back. Karen Dorr is in this movie. She plays Malava.
He's fantastic.
Gorgeous, excellent performance. She's known best for being a Bond girl in You Only Live Twice, playing Helen Brandt with Sean Connery. She had over 70 acting credits on IMDb and did movies in all genres. She did a Hitchcock film. She did horror. She did drama. She did comedy. Like, she was very talented. I found the combination of actors in this to be really engaging. Like, we talked about Michael Rennie, Paul Naschy being the tour de force that he is. I liked Detective Toberman, played by Craig Hill, as well. I thought he was really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, you know this about me, and I think most people know this about me now. The minute you have a serious law enforcement agency or agent pursuing a monster thing and taking it seriously, I'm in. I love that. I love that type of story. So to have this detective who's like, well, maybe it is a vampire kind of thing, I'm all in, man. I was there for it. I do want to talk about Karen Dorr real quick. You mentioned her before we get too far away from her. She was also in The Torture Chamber of Dr. Sadism with Christopher Lee, which we did talk about on Monster Kid Radio way back in episode 348 with Troy Howarth. If you want to hear some more talk about Karen Dorr with somebody who really knows his stuff when it comes to this kind of cinema, check out that episode for that.
Excellent.
Yeah. But yeah, I love bringing in the police and having them get involved here in that little side story. I could have done more with that.
Yeah, Craig Hill was great. I looked him up. He seems like an interesting individual. He started out his career acting as a contract player for 20th Century Fox. When that didn't work out so well, spaghetti westerns in Europe were on the rise. He had done some Western TV stuff. And so on a whim, he bought a ticket to Spain and went to go make spaghetti westerns. And somehow he ended up doing some Naschy films.
A lot of the spaghetti westerns, we call them spaghetti westerns because they were shot in Italy. However, a lot of them did end up being co-productions with Spain and shot a lot of stuff in Spain. So I could see the connection there potentially. And y'all know I love me a good spaghetti western. So yeah, it's fun to see some of these actors that maybe didn't make it super big here in the States go over to Europe and get involved with Euro cinema. And the producers over there are like, hey, we got an American star, quote unquote star, make them the lead.
Yeah.
Roger Brown did that. Richard Harrison did that. A lot of these guys did that over there, which is great. Speaking
back to my whole Venn diagram theory, I also feel like there's a little bit of a loop of Mario Bava here.
Yes.
In the way that it's lit, in the way that some of the drama is played. I also think that maybe with this being an international production, I would give this movie the same credit as a lot of those Italian films where they were done in a way that they were easily dubbed and lip synced to other languages. Mm-hmm. As much as I miss Michael Rennie's real voice, I feel like matching up for the lip movement of the performances, I thought they did a really good job.
Well, a lot of these movies, they would just tell them to say it in your native language. We're going to fix it anyway. We're going to re-record it and post anyway. So just say whatever, do your lines in your native language and we'll dub it for whatever country we're going to distribute to. So, with Michael Rennie in particular, to have it dubbed into English, not that difficult to do, whereas you can kind of tell with some of the other characters.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's what happened with this particular movie, but I know with like a lot of the spaghetti westerns, they didn't shoot live sound at all.
Yeah, and that's the way it looked here.
But he's so good. Even just his presence, even if you don't hear it, he is so good. I'll admit, I don't have a lot of Michael Rennie knowledge. I know Day the Earth Stood Still, of course. And he did an incredible version of Jekyll and Hyde for television. But I haven't seen a lot of his stuff, but I know he's one of these guys who was constantly working, doing lots of film, doing lots of TV. I don't know what led him to working on this movie at the end of his career, but I'm glad he did.
Oh, for sure. And I don't like people discrediting it as Rennie slumming it at the end. I think he did great here, and I think that it really works.
I feel the same way about Rennie in this as I do about Lon Chaney in Dracula versus Frankenstein, the real Dracula versus Frankenstein, where that was his last film, and he couldn't speak because he'd been drinking so much and his throat was gone and all that. No, man, they're putting in their best work that they possibly could at the time. They're not slumming it. They're not phoning it in.
Yeah,
he's working.
Well, it's like Bela Lugosi working with Ed Wood. Yeah. He's at the end of his career. He's struggling, but he's a consummate professional actor.
Yes. Yep.
And he loves what he does. And you can see that passion regardless of the script or the story or the budget. Like a lot of these actors, and especially all the Monster Men, like you can tell they had a passion for what they did.
Yep.
And that went all the way to the end of their lives. And I know we're talking low budget horror, but to me, that's a beautiful thing.
Especially when they embrace it the way that they do. Mm-hmm. I feel like there might have been times in Chaney's career or Karloff's or Lugosi's career where they didn't want to be associated with those monster things or terror pictures anymore. They wanted to do other work. They would eventually come back around or whatever and continue to be professionals for the rest of their lives. I feel like somebody like Naschy always embraced this. I've seen interviews or read interviews or bits about him where he talks about Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman being the movie that made him want to get into this stuff to begin with. And he never lost that passion for, at least it appears to have never lost the passion for this kind of stuff. And I love that. I love that he firmly remained a monster kid.
Yeah, I love it too. I love that story. I think it was in the documentary, John Landis is the one who tells it, about how as a little boy, little Jacinto Molina, which is Paul Naschy's real name, as a little kid walked by the theater, saw the poster, and immediately told his mom, let's go see this. And his mom, who I guess was pretty strict, very Catholic, was like, no, absolutely not. The next day, little Jacinto went back to the theater, went to the usher, begged and groveled to get in. And they're like, go away, kid. You can't pay. You're alone. Go, leave. And supposedly he went day after day, several days in a row, until someone at the theater was like, finally gave in, was like, yeah, sure, go. Get in there. Leave me alone. And it changed his life. It set the trajectory for what he wanted to do. And hearing that story and then ending up with him having these movies where you have monster rallies and like this, where he's the werewolf and he battles with the vampire and Frankenstein and he's fighting these monsters. It just must have made his day, regardless of the struggles of the makeup, the budget, the schedule, everything else. Like, the little monster kid inside Paul Naschy must have been giggling the whole time.
Oh, yeah. You got to imagine that. As much as he looks like this tortured kind of combination of there's a combination of torture and machoism to him.
Mm-hmm.
And to see that on screen, there's this little kid inside that's just like, I get to beat up Frankenstein's monster now. That's how cool is that?
Yeah.
Who is
sure.
that? And he continued to do this. He worked to the end. And he continued to put on the werewolf makeup too, for many, many, many years. He did over 12 of the Naschy films and then put on the werewolf makeup for other things as well. I mean, come on. This is awesome.
Yeah. Now, this movie was a troubled production. A lot of his productions were.
Yeah.
This went through a couple different directors. Two Argentinian directors. It started with Hugo Fregonese, who quit halfway through. And then you get Tullio Di Michele. I don't think that Paul worked with either of these guys again. I see that he did a lot of work with Leon Klimovsky.
Yep.
Can you see a noticeable difference in those movies that Klimovsky directed?
Really more, more cohesive.
Yeah.
A lot more cohesive. But I can't, I would imagine some of that is because of the style and his, that particular director's ability to kind of pull a movie together, and the fact that you didn't have these three different people involved in the same movie, but a lot more cohesive.
And it seems like he and Naschy had a really good working relationship, which I imagine made a big difference.
For sure.
I really look forward to watching Naschy's other work. Like you mentioned, the Japan movies, and that's a fascinating story of him going there and making films, being really impressed and knocked over by the professionalism of the artistry in Japan.
Oh, yeah.
And I really want to see The Beast and the Magic Sword. The fact that, the idea of having a silver katana be the weapon to take against a werewolf and the swordsmiths making a genuinely silver katana for this movie really is exciting. And I look forward to seeing that. And the fact that he got so much respect there. In the documentary, they tell this really wild story of when he goes to Japan, he's loving it. He makes 2 or 3 movies. I've heard different accounts how many he made there, but I guess he gets approached by the Yakuza, and they're like, and which everybody knows, they're kind of like Japanese mafia. They're like, hey, we'll finance more of your pictures, but we need you to bring guns in from Spain when you come back. We need you to be a gun runner for our commitment to your films. Supposedly, Naschy was like, yeah, sure, that sounds great. He went back to Spain and never went to Japan again.
Well,
how wild is that?
I've not heard that.
Yeah.
Story. All right. Well, yeah, that would be enough for me too, I suppose.
How many Naschy films have you seen?
Not as many as I'd like. I will say that I've seen enough of his movies with the director Carlos Arid, if I think his name is correctly, to know that was my favorite collaboration between the two of them. Really good. They did The Werewolf versus a Vampire Woman and Curse of the Devil, but they did one of my absolute favorite Paul Naschy movies. They did The Mummy's Revenge, but they also did Horror Rises from the Tomb. And I really, really like Horror Rises from the Tomb. That's one of my favorite Naschy flicks. He plays a warlock in that movie. And it's just really cool. I've actually had a chance to introduce that movie and such years ago when I was working with Dorado Films, introduced it at the Clinton Street Theater and got to talk a little bit about it. But that was a lot of fun. That's a really good one. That's from 1973. So if you are looking for some non-werewolf Naschy action, Horror Rises from the Tomb is where I would probably direct people to go, because that's a really good one I'd like to talk about here on the show at some point in the future. It is bloody, it's sexy, there's some nudity, but darn, it's so good. So good.
I've seen a lot of people say that The Werewolf versus the Vampire Woman, also known as Walpurgis Night, is considered his best werewolf movie. So it's
right up
it's
there.
definitely on my list.
Yeah, it's right up there. And I think that one's in the public domain, or at least it has been presented as such in the past. I know I've shown it on the stream before.
Sweet. Yeah, there's that. We talked about The Magic Sword, which I really look forward to. Have you seen The Return of the Wolfman? He made in 1980, wrote, directed, and starred in it.
I have not.
I've seen a few clips of it. It looks really slick as far as the cinematography and the lighting and staging, but I haven't seen it, and that's definitely one I'd like to see in the future.
Another one with multiple titles, like The Craving.
Yeah. I think with these international productions, which I'm all in favor of, it seems like when it comes to getting distribution and trying to make back some of that investment, probably as a creator, you're open to anything to get your movie in front of people and get some ticket sales and some revenue coming in from TV stations or whatever you need to try to make your next picture.
Yeah. Well, especially with the European movies, with the European movies, we're not shooting live sound. But Werewolf versus Vampire Woman, I'm pretty sure Jeff has shown it at the Joy Cinema as well as part of Weird Wednesday. I don't know the last time he did it, but it's been in rotation a couple of times over there. It's a good one. It's a really good one. When I do show it on the stream, I try to make it like the last thing that I show in the loop because it is a little more bloody. Because it's in Spanish. It's 71, so. But it's good. And the vampire effects are pretty cool, I think.
Yeah, I look forward to learning more and watching more Naschy films for sure. And I thank you for this opportunity. I feel like every time I'm on with something that
you brought it up, man. This is you.
But every time we pick something that is new to me, I feel like it's cracking the seal on the crypt and going in and finding all kinds of skeletons, monsters, books of the dead, spells. Like it's always a deep dive. It's a treasure hunt, and I always have a great time not only enjoying the movie but learning about the people who made the effort to make it and then celebrating it with you. It's a really good time.
We've been really lucky that we've gotten some good ones here. But I think you and I both are, like you said earlier, of the mindset that there's always going to be something to enjoy in these movies. I don't like to bring out a movie just to kind of shoot it down, And I know when you look up things about Assignment Terror online, you're going to find a lot of overly critical and joking jabs at it. I think it's a fun film. I think this is a romp. It's a monster rally, for crying out loud. And if things get too boring for you, stay tuned because there's going to be some fun soundtrack music to listen to while you go run and get yourself a snack. It's a fun flick. I enjoyed it. And I enjoy talking about these movies with you. I like introducing movies to you. I gotta have you return the favor at some point.
Sure, absolutely.
You gotta find a movie or two that means something to you that you pitch to me.
All right. Deal.
Uh-oh. What did I just sign up for?
Beware.
I don't like that laugh.
It's cool to be talking about Naschy on the 50th anniversary of the end of Franco Spain. The dictatorship ended November 22nd, 1975.
Okay.
With Franco's death. That just popped up as I was looking at my phone.
Yeah, I do wish I had watched more Naschy or had more Naschy in me.
One thing we didn't touch on in the show was that this
I'm still reporting, so.
Oh, okay, well, I don't know if you want to edit this in or not. One thing that I found really interesting in Assignment Terror was how he was reanimated by the removal of the silver bullet.
Surgically.
And I don't think I've ever seen that in a movie before. Have you?
No, I've seen remove the stake to bring the vampire back, but I've never seen pull the silver bullet out like it's a thing.
Do you like it? Do you think it's a good add to the mythos, the cinema mythos of lycanthropy, or not?
I mean, I think it's kind of cool. I mean, I still think the best bringing back from the dead scene is, the moon shining on the tomb of Larry Talbot and Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. But pulling the silver bullet out of the remains, I think it's kind of neat. And it does give more credence to the idea of the Wolfman, the werewolf, being immortal. Because the means the remains aren't breaking down like normal. Because, with a vampire, at least if you keep the bones together and the stakes still at the end where the heart would be, that sort of thing, I guess. I don't know.
Well, the way that I really liked it. I was impressed by that idea, and like what you just said, I like the fact of it being an immortal curse.
Yeah,
sort of like a vampire, like otherworldly.
Yeah, they've always kind of implied that anyway, right?
Right, but to have that moment, and also I think that was Dracula's best moment, to be honest, because I don't think the actor did anything, but to watch the skeleton reanimate and be like populated by organs and blood and the eyes, I thought that was pretty cool.
I do wonder how much of that footage was like real surgical footage, because they were known for that.
Well, and that open heart, it looked like an open heart surgery to me.
Yeah. Sometimes they do that, and like I know there's another Paul Naschy film that there is like they show real pig slaughter and things like that, because that's just what they did. And
stock footage.
It sucks.
Yeah.
It's not like they went out and did it just for the movie. It's just stuff that was from something else. But
yeah,
I do wonder how much of that was like real open heart surgery and that sort of thing. So I know some of the exploitation movies of that era, they would do that.
Mm-hmm.
Cheaper to buy that than to recreate it, I guess.
Right. Well, and production value, right? Like that's part of the idea of stock footage.
For sure.
Is you get added production value.
Yeah.
From real life.
Yeah. But I do like the idea. I don't know if I would incorporate it into my normal, like Mark Temple's not going to have that in a werewolf story, but oh, maybe he will. I don't know. We'll see. I like it. So, hey, that brings us to the end of this episode of Bride of Monster Kid Radio. Thanks for being here. Big thanks to Mark. Big thanks to Kenny. Big thanks to Vincent for calling in. And big thanks to you for listening to the show. And I'm sure you're sharing the episode on your various social media platforms. And I know you've already given us a review wherever it is you download your podcast. I mean, you have done that, right? Right? Don't make me send Paul Naschy after you. Please review Bride of Monster Kid Radio wherever you download your favorite podcast. We could really use the support and just really appreciate you all being here. If you want to be cool like Vincent was at the top of the show and call in your thoughts, we'd love to hear from you. You can leave us a voicemail at 360-524-2484. That's 360-524-2484. There is a hard 3-minute limit, but if you have a little bit more than 3 minutes of stuff to say, feel free to call back a second time and I'll stitch it together in post-production. Or you can send me an audio file or just an old-fashioned email to monsterkidradio@gmail.com, and we'll include you in an upcoming episode of the podcast. Of course, you can find this information on our website over at monsterkidradio.net. You're going to find links to everything that we've talked about here on the show. And I want to give a huge shout out to Mark Matzke, who is adding some work to his podcasting table. Is that a thing? Podcasting table? Desk? Podcast load? I don't know how you want to call it. Bottom line is, as Mark recently announced on his own personal Facebook page that he's going to be doing some more. He is going to be launching a new podcast called Unseen Cinema. And that's going to launch this week on Black Friday when he talks about the movie Black Friday, starring Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff. And Mark, you beat me to the punch. I was thinking about doing like a little special Black Friday thing, but dude, I saw you post this and I just am going to sit back and enjoy your work by checking out the podcast. You can find it on Spotify, Apple, Google, and all the major podcast platforms. Like I said, it's launching on Black Friday itself, which is November 28th, 12:01 a.m. Look at you, Mark. That's awesome. Also, he's got his Monster Study Group thing going, so check it out. If you like what he does with the Beta Capsule review, you're going to love what he's doing when he's working for himself, doing his own thing. And like I said, I'm going to be listening to Unseen Cinema on Black Friday. I can't wait, man. And I mean, Lugosi and Karloff, how can you go wrong? Seriously. I'll make sure there's links to what Mark's up to in the show notes as well. Love to support the Monster Kids who support us and help us out. Want to just kind of keep the Monster Kid thing going. As far as Matt goes, Matt, thank you so much for pitching some Paul Naschy here. I really enjoyed diving back into Assignment Terror, and I have to tell you, I went back and I rewatched the Wolfman mummy fight over and over and over again because I love the way it ends. I love the way that the werewolf dispatches the mummy. It's unique. We didn't talk about it, and I know we do spoiler warnings and all that on the show. I didn't want to spoil that in our conversation. Listeners, go check that out. If you haven't seen the movie, it's a lot of fun. Just watch out for that soundtrack. What's coming up next week on the show? Well, I know what's coming up on the show next week, and you can find out what's coming up on the show next week as well if you follow us over on Patreon at patreon.com/monsterkidradio. If you follow us over there, and you can do this for free, you don't have to be a paying patron to do this. When I post the show notes for the current episode, which typically happens around Wednesday or Thursday, I blast all of our social media outlets with show notes. On Patreon, this is the only place that I announce what the next episode is going to be. So if you want to be in the loop and know which Monster Kid Radio irregular is coming back to the show, you have to follow us over on Patreon. Trust me, you're not going to want to miss the next episode. The movie that we're going to be talking about, it's a doozy, but it's so much fun, and I can't wait for that as well. So follow us over there on Patreon. Now, of course, if you want to become a paying patron, that helps us out too. I mean, it helps me pay my car insurance. So I'll take whatever I can get with your support. Of course, the best way to support us is to just share the show, let people know about the show. Thanks to people like Chris McMillan, who repost the show on their own Facebook when we announce those show notes later in the week. It means a lot, man, just to try to help spread the word and get more people involved with what we do here on Monster Kid Radio. It means a lot. Thank you. Bride of Monster Kid Radio is a Team Death production. All original content of Bride of Monster Kid Radio is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 Unported license. You can learn more about Team Death, our other projects like Death Designs, Mail Order Zombie, the Team Death YouTube channel, and more at www.teamdeath.com. Remember, death is spelled D-E-T-H. All previous episodes of this podcast, as well as the original Monster Kid Radio podcast, are available at www.monsterkidradio.net. Please rate and review Bride of Monster Kid Radio wherever you download your favorite podcasts. Spice Island is copyright 2025 Ka-Tikis. You can find it on their album Americana. You can find them on Bandcamp at katikis.bandcamp.com. Remember, Ka-Tikis is spelled K-A-W-T-I-K-I-S. And then .bandcamp.com. And like I said, they've got a show coming up. They're going to be playing at the Dinner Matinee at the Ship at 1221 Union Avenue, Kansas City, Kansas, on December 6th. They're playing from 5 to 8 p.m. It's a 3-hour block of some really cool surf music. If you're in the area, you really ought to check it out. And like I said, let them know that you heard about them here on Bride of Monster Kid Radio. My name's Derek M. Cook. I'll talk to everybody next week. Ciao.